are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, presented by Get Upside. Just download the free Get Upside app and use promo code touchdown to get 25 cents per gallon or more cash back on your first tank. I am Marcus Mosher. He is Landon McCool, and we've got a busy show for you guys today. But Landon, let's first talk about the Pro Bowl. Did you watch it? How much did you enjoy it? What were your thoughts?
I watched some of the skill stuff, right?
Okay,
Because
so you watched the challenges on, what was that, Thursday night?
Yeah, I saw some of the highlights there, which was interesting. Obviously, watching Micah win the race was hilarious, and Trayvon's catch at the catch skills competition was incredible. And then I watched a little bit of the football game.
Did you really? I didn't watch a second of it. I was at Disney on Ice yesterday. So.
Wow. I had an opportunity. It was one of those things where my wife was running around doing stuff. My daughter ran outside to go play, and I suddenly had a moment alone in front of the television, and I was like, "Well, what can I do here?" And unfortunately, all that was available to me was the Pro Bowl. So I watched about 5 minutes of it, and I was like, "This is not even flag football," and I turned it off.
It was awful.
It's awful.
From what everybody tells me, it was awful. All right, we got actual Cowboys news to talk about today. So as I was sitting in the Disney on Ice thing, I got a text. I believe it was from Schefter that said the Dolphins hired Mike McDaniel to be their next head coach, which means Kellen Moore is going to be back with the Cowboys next season. Landon, what are your thoughts?
I think we've kind of covered this topic quite a bit, and it's now just official. I'm certainly if we're gonna be bringing back the same head coach, I'm glad that we're bringing back the same group. There's a chance for some continuity here. There's some chance for some growth. I think that they're obviously in a situation where they're looking to try to run it back, maybe get some better results. I still believe in Kellen Moore, and I still believe that he's got some room above him to improve and to learn from what's going on. And I think there's every opportunity for the Cowboys to kind of course correct what happened at the end of the season with this group and kind of take it to the next step. Now, Cowboys have got a long offseason, a lot of holes to fill. And it's an extremely uphill climb with the kind of losses they're going to face personnel wise. But I think having a head coach that's familiar with the group, your offensive and defensive coordinator that's coming back, at least there's a level of stability there, and you're not also having to deal with all that turnover plus a new coaching regime, and that makes it a little bit easier.
Listen, I get being frustrated by Kellen Moore the way the season ended. A couple of the games late, but you're kidding yourself if you don't think this is a great thing for the Cowboys, right?
Yeah.
Dak Prescott loves Kellen Moore. Seems like Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore get along pretty well. If Kellen Moore would have left to go be a head coach somewhere else, you're probably just promoting somebody who's already on the staff to become an offensive coordinator. And I don't think that helps anything, right? So I do think this is it's a great thing for the Cowboys. Kellen Moore, again, not flawless. He's not a perfect offensive coordinator, but I do think he's really, really good. And I don't think he's going to be – I don't think the last few games of the season are going to define Kellen Moore. I think he's much, much better than what those games showed.
I think with Kellen Moore, you have the opportunity that he could continue to improve and become one of the best young play callers in football. I think if the Cowboys were not able to retain Kellen Moore, you could have been setting yourself up for what is possibly the worst outcome for the coaching staff, right? Returning Mike McCarthy. Dan Quinn's great. I love him, but everything. But getting Mike McCarthy and Dan Quinn and then still not having a plan at offensive coordinator, that's the nightmare scenario. And then suddenly we're trying to convince ourselves into thinking that, Ben McAdoo or freaking, any one of the internal hires would be as good as Kellen Moore or even Mike McCarthy himself. I think that would have been the most disheartening and frustrating thing to deal with, is that you're taking a step back personnel wise and you're taking a step back coaching staff wise. That would have been a really difficult hill to overcome.
100% agree. I do also want to point out, hey, I'm going to keep saying this. Kellen Moore has his flaws. He is not the perfect offensive coordinator. He's still young. He's learning. But he's been the offensive coordinator for the Cowboys for 3 years. In the 2 years that he's had Dak Prescott, they've been number one in points per game both seasons. Like, they're really, really good with him calling plays. I think they can be a little bit more consistent. I think we've been talking about this over the offseason. He's got to find a way to push the easy button when it comes to better opponents and find easier throws for Prescott. But he's good, and it's a big deal that the Cowboys are getting him back.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I think, we had posited other scenarios that we thought that maybe could have been different directions and different steps. But if we're going to try to kind of run this back with this group, which isn't, completely crazy out of the question, it's just difficult. I think this is the best case scenario for that kind of path of getting these guys back, having the Kellen Moore back, and with the thought that, he's going to improve, he's going to get better as he's going to learn from that experience and move forward. And, you get a healthy Dak, and then hopefully things just kind of, instead of getting, falling off of the end there, they sort of find a way to get better, mid-season and kind of careen into a positive flow going into the playoff, which was not the case going in last year.
And here's the other thing about Kellen Moore coming back. If he would have gotten hired for that Dolphins job, he's probably taking a handful of assistants with him, right?
Maybe.
I mean, maybe Doug Nussmeier is his offensive coordinator in Miami or something like that, right? Now you're bringing all those guys back next year, and what's probably a make or break year for Mike McCarthy. I actually don't hate that. I like having some continuity. If it doesn't work this year, Landon, let's say they go 10-7 and they're knocked out in the first round of the playoffs, then I think you can just move on from everybody. It makes it a lot easier, right? But I say, but if you lose Kellen Moore, and let's say you win one round in the playoffs and you get knocked out in the divisional round, it makes it a lot trickier to say, oh, well, hey, let's see what the new offensive coordinator can do in year 2 and all that kind of stuff.
Well, look, the Cowboys would have been screwed. Like, if Kellen if Kellen goes to Miami and then Kellen, steals even one or two of these assistants, the Cowboys are suddenly left with the bag and very few talented offensive coordinator types left out in the wild. That's why I'm sure that's why you're starting to see folks randomly bringing up Dan Mullen's name in the timeline. Like, that wasn't a seed planted by somebody in the Cowboys front office somewhere. Like, it's like you're starting to really grasp for guys to come in and be the offensive play caller that's, worthy of ultimately, if you don't have Kellen Moore back and you don't have a new head coach, what are we even doing next?
Exactly. Yep.
You don't have you have a middle of the road offensive coordinator with an offense that tailed off in the season. You don't have a good enough defense necessarily to like carry you to the playoffs. Is it just like a warm rehash last year? This year, at least you can convince yourself some of those guys can get better. You can bring back some of this talent, maybe shuffle it around a little bit and reload. I think if they hadn't gotten Kellen Moore and Mike McCarthy was still the head coach, they really would have been in a terrible spot.
Yep. I'm pretty convinced that Kellen Moore would have taken, one of the offensive guys with him. Maybe it's Adam Henry, the wide receiver coach. Maybe it's Doug Nussmeier. And then on defense, I'm sure he would have grabbed a couple guys, right? Or the few, like maybe he would have hired Al Harris to be his defensive coordinator, or maybe it would have been Joe Witt. That's the benefit of not only bringing back Kellen Moore, but you get to retain the rest of that coaching staff.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a big deal. All right, let's move on. But before we do that, we want to tell you guys about Built Bar. This time of year, almost everybody's given up on their New Year's resolutions, but let's try not to do that this year. We're going to try to stick to our resolution to eat right, thanks to Built Bar. It's almost not really a resolution because you're going to want to eat Built Bars. They're so good. Only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, 17 grams of protein. Plus, they have so many great flavors: mint brownie, coconut almond. And for this month, white chocolate cookies and cream. I know, Landon, they're sending us a box of those, so I'm excited to try them.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah. If you think of a good flavor, send it to them. They'll consider making it. They're really good that way. So go to built.com, use promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your next order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. All right. We need to just wrap up the Senior Bowl, which finished on Saturday. The game itself is not the most important thing in the world. And we know this. Most scouts leave by Thursday afternoon. They'll get back home. They'll watch the tape, but it's not, I don't know. It's not all that important. However, a couple of guys stood out. Just some of your overall takeaways from not only the game, but just this week in general.
Well, I mean, I think the overall take I had for the game was that it felt like the pass rushers are way outpacing the offensive line in that game.
Which should happen in an all-star game, right?
Yeah. I think that, that was it was an impressive group. I think it showed you that there is a nice little group of, let's say, 30 to
60?
90 guys, like kind of into the
Basically,
second, third round guys,
right?
Day two guys of a nice little bulk of pass rushers that kind of fit into that into that group. Whether you want to talk about Jermaine Johnson or Kingsley Nagbry, is that how you say his name? Nagbry?
I would even add some defensive tackles in there.
It
feels like if you want to add depth to your defensive line in this class, day 2 is the spot to do it.
Wyatt, Logan Hall from Houston, I think probably falls in that.
From Oklahoma, who won the MVP of the game. Yep.
Yeah, Winfrey had an incredible game.
Yep.
I think that was my main takeaway, is that there is defensive line talent kind of falling in that late day one, all day 2 kind of area, right? My other main takeaway just from watching the game and having not really seen as much of the practice for these types of guys is that the quarterbacks were okay. I think that I haven't watched a ton of Sam Howell in college. I thought that he was a little bit more athletic than I expected, or at least based on what I've seen so far. The guy I watched, in a few games I watched in college, was more of a statuesque, I thought, and I thought that he has at least the athletic ability to kind of break the pocket and get loose and kind of create, pick up some first downs, that sort of thing. So I thought that was interesting. Who was the guy that I talked to you about last night?
Calvin Austin. I actually got his stuff pulled up right now for the wide receiver from Memphis.
So after I was done with the practice, I kind of went back and tried to watch some of the other practice and backfill some of the wide receiver and DB stuff, just because I didn't watch as much of that during the week. And man, Calvin Austin was the guy that definitely popped in my eyes. Like, just whether it was just that weird helmet, I guess, or if it was just, I don't know if it was that, but he is so quick and just changes direction so well and has such great body control. And really, again, the thing that separates those guys is, first, that they separate, but second, that they when they have good catch radius. And I saw I saw a guy who, for a guy his size, I thought could catch the ball really well, all around his body and kind of reach back if he needed to and make the snag. So I feel like that was a guy who, just kind of watching his practice tape, really kind of caught my eye.
I want to talk about Calvin Austin a lot. We don't have to spend a ton of time on him, but he's tiny, 5'7" on the dot, 173, but super productive. Back-to-back seasons of 1,000 yards at Memphis. He scored 19 touchdowns on offense over the last 2 years, 2 special teams touchdowns. We talked about earlier this year that the Cowboys need to add some speed to their offense. 4.38 is projected 40. It's just, is he a guy that's going to be able to stretch the field in a Deshaun Jackson, Tyreek Hill type of role, or is he more the underneath Tavon Austin kind of stuff? That's the hardest part about figuring out these players.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing is that we just haven't seen a lot of these guys that, Dak. I don't know that Dak likes to throw that type of deep ball.
I don't think he does either.
Where he's throwing it to get guys underneath it. Like, he likes to throw to a target that's going to go up and get the ball, right? I don't know that this is necessarily what that guy does. I think this guy,
if he does throw the ball down the field, it's more to the middle, like on deep crossers and that kind of stuff, right? Rather than sideline shots.
I think a guy like this would be really useful for the Cowboys. I just wonder if like how much of a deep threat can he be? I mean, again, I don't know. Like, I'm not saying that Dak
Yeah.
doesn't like these guys. I'm saying I don't know if Dak likes these guys. So it would be interesting to see if he would be someone that the Cowboys would ever consider, considering they're pretty hardcore about their wide receiver templates. It seems like.
They are, but again, we're going to come back to this easy button thing. They need to create easier throws
Absolutely.
for Dak. So if you want to build in a couple, slot screens where your guy's just kind of fading to the sideline and you throw him the ball and he takes it 6 yards, this is a guy that can do that for you. And you don't have to probably spend a premium pick on him. I saw today a mock draft where he goes in the first round. That's not happening. But like third, fourth round, you can find a guy like this that can probably never going to be a number 1 or maybe even a number 2 receiver, but can add value to your offense.
We got to talk about a dream I had. I busted this out on you randomly.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right, moving off the Calvin Austin thing real quick, okay? I had a dream last night that the Cowboys were trying to figure out a way to get their own version of Deebo Samuel. And do you know who they ended up using?
No, tell me.
Tony Pollard was in my dream. And I woke up in the morning and I was like, I need to look at this. And I did like a mock draftable comparison to see what kind of athletes. They're obviously used completely different, but I was thinking about it. Like, it's too bad that we don't see Pollard being used more as a wide receiver, like even as a downfield threat. Because if you go back and watch him in college, like he was a receiver.
He was a slot receiver. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know this is completely non-topical, but it is on the topic of the Cowboys. I would like to see, we talk about what are they going to do at wide receiver. I think Pollard needs to be considered a non-traditional running back and stopped being used as a traditional running back. And even if you wanted to replace the Zeke element of the backfield and kind of get another kind of guy who's getting the mass of your carries, I think instead of trying to force feed Tony Pollard more running back carries, I think we need to find more ways to get him the ball a la Deebo Samuel, because I think he has that kind of similar ability to break tackles and make big yards out of simple plays. And I think that kind of feeds into what we're talking about with the easy button, right? Like making things easier for Dak.
It sounds so simple when you say just get him the ball in space, but that's really what they need to do more often, right? More plays where it's just him and maybe a blocker and he's got to beat one guy, right? Or him one-on-one with a linebacker out of the slot. Like, put him in those situations and give him 9 touches a game. I promise your offense is going to be better because he's really good at that kind of stuff. I agree with you. I just really quickly from the Senior Bowl, finishing up stuff. A couple offensive linemen looked really good. I thought Trevor Penning got better as the week went on. I thought he was better in the game. So that's a little bit interesting. Tight ends, I really feel like this is a deep tight end class. And if the Cowboys want to let Dalton Schultz go because they can't pay him, I feel like they can find a similar prospect to Schultz in the 3rd or 4th round. And 2 years from now, maybe they have a similar player. I like this tight end class.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem is that if you're letting Dalton Schultz go, you're kind of conceding tight end production in 2022. It's like you're just not going to get a ton of it. I think
unless you feel good about Jarwin, which I don't, but
the problem is that Jarwin, still needs to develop because he hasn't played a ton, and that whether that's injury and or opportunity in both. It's not like Jarwin is like this fully developed player. He's going into his 5th season in the league or something. Like he still needs some time playing on the field to kind of get to his ceiling. So yeah, I do think that I do worry about the fact that, and I don't disagree with the idea that maybe they should let Schultz go necessarily, but I think that they're not going to have a like-for-like replacement immediately as far as I'm concerned.
And maybe the best strategy is to move on from both, right? Let Schultz go for $12 million in free agency, cut Jarwin, save whatever money you can get, and then go out and get a veteran free agent, whoever's out there that's, let's say, for $4 or $5 million a year, whether it's Austin Hooper, Hayden Hurst, somebody like that to give you a baseline level of production. And then you draft Jake Ferguson in the 3rd round or somebody like that. And, maybe 2 years from now, you could move on from Hooper, you can move on from Hayden, and you've got a starter. I wouldn't be opposed to that strategy either.
Yeah, that may end up being what they have to do if they can't sign Schultz.
Or just lean into Sean McEwen as tight end 1. Let's go, baby.
Just really trying to push that wagon uphill, huh?
I know. All right. One more quick break to tell you guys about Get Upside. Our listeners are earning cash back for every single gallon of gas every time they fill up. Just download the free Get Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and use promo code Touchdown for 25 cents per gallon or more on your first fill up. Don't pay full price at the pump anymore. Get cash back using Get Upside. Just download the app for free and use promo code Touchdown for 25 cents per gallon or more on your first tank. Some people who drive a lot are earning like $200, $300 a year just by using cash back. And there's apps or Get Upside. There's absolutely no catch. You can get cash back right to your bank account, PayPal, or e-gift card. Again, free Get Upside app. Use promo code Touchdown to get 25 cents per gallon or more back on your first tank. All right. We've got a new mock draft from ESPN, and I'm going to give you the two players that are available at 24, and I want you to tell me who you would pick.
Oh, boy.
In this mock, Nakobe Dean,
Mm-hmm.
linebacker from Georgia, and Zion Johnson, the guard from Boston College, are both available to the Cowboys at 24. Where would you go?
I would probably go Nakobe Dean. Right? And is that a trick question?
No, it's not a trick question. It's more positional value, right?
Yeah.
Would you rather have the guard who might last a little bit longer and you could start right away, or would you rather the Kobe Dean?
I think Dean, because I view Zion as more of a second round player, I guess, or at least I view Dean as a higher than 24 pick potentially.
I got you.
So I just feel like that's kind of the value there. And I don't know that, you're right. Linebacker has less positional value, but I don't know that guard has got a ton more positional value than linebacker at this point. So that's where I'm landed.
In this mock by Jordan Reed of ESPN, he gave the Cowboys to Kobe Dean for the exact reasons that you just mentioned. He thought it'd be easier to find a guard in the second round. He basically said that Dean he's undersized, but he's the perfect complement to Micah Parsons. And I agree. Like Dean and Parsons together at linebacker would be so much fun. And you could kind of mix and match that third, let's say, what are we going to call him? Second level defender, right?
Yeah.
If you want to play Jaron Kearse down in the box or Donovan Wilson down there, you could do that. If you want to have Jabril Cox on the field to cover tight ends, you could do that as well. I just think he makes your defense so much faster.
Yeah.
And gives you another playmaker. And I think I think they can fill guard a little easier because the worst case scenario for the Cowboys at guard right now is probably Connor McGovern, right? That's probably your floor, right?
Yeah. And
I'm okay with that.
We don't really know what Connor McGovern is going to look like next year. I mean, he may come, after all this experience, take it and really improve this year, realizing that starting job is his to lose at this point, right? So, I think that guard is definitely the position that of those two that, despite losing your starter there, you feel like you have a floor there already. Sure. I would like to draft somebody high to kind of compete there, but I don't feel the need to force a guy who I think is a lesser player over Dean just because you feel like it's more of a need.
Okay. I think you could draft. Listen, Connor McGovern was a third-round pick. Connor Williams was a second-round pick. You could draft a guy somewhere in that range and let them compete with McGovern and see how camp goes, and you're fine on the offensive line. I mean, they could be better. I think they could use a better coach, offensive line coach. But Nakobe Dean, I feel like he's a little bit of a game changer for them on defense because there's just not many teams in the league that would have the athleticism and the instincts that the Cowboys would have at the second level.
Let me ask you this, because I mean, this is not something that I want. But do you think that there is a chance this year that they consider moving Lael back to guard now that we have an offseason? Because obviously I was completely against this during the season. I'm not necessarily for it now at all, but I think it's something that we should at least ask ourselves because they clearly like Terrence Steele. They clearly don't have necessarily a built-in – I mean, McGovern is kind of your floor there. Is there the opportunity you think that they shuffle this around so they get the opportunity for all three of these guys that they like, Tyron, Steele, and Lael, to actually get on the field at once?
I'm going to give you an odd answer. It depends on Josh Ball. I really think that's the answer because I like Terrence Steele a lot in that swing tackle role because he gives you a guy that if he has to play left or right tackle is competent. And with Tyron, basically, we know that he's going to miss some time every year going forward. I kind of like the idea of Terrence Steele backing him up. Now, if you move Collins to left guard and Terrence Steele to right tackle, all of a sudden now it's Josh Ball that has to come in and play for Tyron Smith if he goes down in the first quarter. I don't know. We haven't seen Ball play at all, so I don't know if I can answer that one yet.
Let me ask you this then. Follow up to that. Is it easier in the second or third round of this draft, if let's say you go Nakobe Dean in the first round, is it easier to go find a guy that you could develop as a tackle than it is to find a plug and play starter at guard in the second and third round?
No, I think it's easier to find a guard in the second or third round.
Okay.
It's just, if you are I don't even want to say competent tackle, you go in the first round, because that's not true. If you even have tools to be a potential tackle in the NFL, you go in the first round, right? It's just, how many of those guys after pick 50 end up becoming good tackles in the NFL?
I'm trying to remember who that kid is, and this is bad radio, but there's that Australian kid who plays for, it's not Minnesota. I can't remember what it is, but there's some guys. There are a couple of guys that I saw that were like they were kind of like Jordan Mailatu or whatever is the guy for the Eagles, where they're like an Australian rules football player that doesn't have a ton of experience, but like came in and played left tackle and didn't give up a single hurry or something. So there are those guys available, but I think I tend to agree with you that if you're getting a choice and you're like second to third round is your area, and you need either a backup offensive tackle who you could develop or a starter right now at guard or center, I feel like you're right that there's more likely to be a chance that Zion Johnson or I'm trying to think of somebody. I mean, someone like I know we've been bagging on him all week, but I think like a guy like a Hayes, like from OU, like a little bit later, like those guys are probably more readily available and more able to kind of just step in and do what they need to help your team.
I just really quickly, I'm looking at like some of the offensive tackles over the last couple of years who are like late second or third round picks, and it's just a complete wasteland. Like Lucas Niang for the Chiefs, who can never stay healthy. Matt Parrott for the Eagles or for the Giants, who can't play at all. Like you just don't find those guys at all.
It's true. It's true.
But guard, you can. Like you can find guards all over the place, and you can find centers that can walk in there and start. I like Terrence Steele a lot. I'd rather just keep him in that. I'd rather keep him at the swing tackle spot than have Lyle Collins at guard. I almost think it's more valuable to have a good swing tackle than it is to have a good left guard. I know that sounds crazy, but it's kind of my feelings here.
No, I think swing tackle is a very difficult position to play because you don't get as many reps. You got to be able to step in and play either side on a moment's notice. It's not an easy ask. So I don't think it's unreasonable to suggest that it's a difficult position to find because, you could not only can you find a ton of guards, you can find a bunch of tackles who can play guard too.
Exactly.
So it's not as difficult position to find.
So we would be happy if Nakobe Dean's the pick here at 24 to sum this up, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, he's a talented player. At 24, it's like you got to stop kind of holding on to the idea of positional value at that point. You're just drafting the best player. I mean, you're picking at 24. So, you're not going to probably get a first-round graded player. You're getting the best player you have available to you. This is a guy who takes your defense to the next level, allows you to further unlock Parsons. Now you don't feel like you have to use Parsons a certain way depending on who you're playing, right? San Francisco, you knew that Parsons was going to be playing linebacker
because he had no choice to.
They didn't have anybody else who could do what you needed them to do at linebacker, and now you're not necessarily pigeonholed if you get a guy like Nakobe Dean.
Exactly. I think Nakobe Dean is a first-round pick all day long. We've also seen Dan Quinn have a lot of success with these type of linebackers before,
exactly.
Right? I'm all in on Nakobe Dean to Dallas. I think that'd be a great fit. All right, that is it for today's show. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, you can download the podcast wherever you get your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. Continue to check us out on YouTube. You can follow the show at Locked On Cowboys. You can follow Landon at McCool BCB, and I'm at Marcus _Mosher. And we'll see you guys next time.